Hi, this is Jacquelyn Reeves, and
I'm Robert Gibson. Hi.
hi. And we wanted to just get together and talk about some of our experiences that we had working in the German Democratic Republic shortly before the wall came down, and also right directly after the wall came down. And we came to this idea because it has been 30 years since the wall came down. And yeah, the focus on what happened in the East, what has gone on, how do we evaluate it now? It's changed. And that's one thing Rob and I both agreed on when we were just kind of discussing this, was that, you know, our perspectives change and how we've evaluated the past has changed. And we just kind of wanted to try to jump back into some of our core experiences and thoughts that we had when we were there. So I'll tell you, when I lived in the East, I was not an interculturalist. I was a German language and literature student from the US doing my third year abroad. And I was recommended by my German professor in the US to not go to West Germany to study, but to go to the East. And this
That was
is
very
something
unusual at the time, wasn't it? That was
yeah.
that was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's not one group I work with today or talk to who is not astounded by this fact. Yeah. So, but I will just tell you, he said to me, he said, if you go to the East, you're going to be forced to really learn German because nobody speaks English. And he said, and you're going to have a very deep and concrete experience with the Germans that is hard to get in the West, because you're going to be in one of these Massenunis, these huge university systems in the West that, especially for Americans, they can get a bit lost in, because the Americans tend to be such a large group of people studying in the West. And I can tell you today, he was not wrong. So, good. So yeah, that's using these two things. And Rob, tell us a little bit about your situation. How did you have contact with the East as well? Let's hear this.
That's right. I mean, I find, but by the way, your experience absolutely fascinating. I think it is unique. Also, the fact that you were based not in Berlin, but in Rostock, so
That's right.
basically in the provinces. That's even more special. And when you approached me, I also realized that this was a fundamental time in my life. It was something that really has influenced me. It started for me actually before the time that we're basically talking about. It started for me very early on in the 1970s. I lived and worked in West Berlin in 1977. This was a part of a youth exchange program where they found you basically a job and somewhere to live. It was run by the Berlin Senate and the British government, and it was actually designed to help people remember West Berlin, basically. And my job was actually at the company Siemens, who I later worked for, funnily enough. But at that time, it was a pensions department, which was quite sleepy, I must admit. And my job was purely administrative. I was just a student, an intern. But it was very interesting because I was confronted with German history immediately. When I was working through the files and sifting them into different categories, I realized that a lot of people had stopped work on the 13th of August, 1961. And I realized that was the day the wall was put up. And that was when the East, a lot of the employees worked in the West, but they lived in the East and they could not get to work anymore. Mm-hmm. And I also met pensioners who came to get money. They were allowed out of East Berlin to come and collect a pension from Siemens. So they came and they got some cash and they went back, and I had to look after the cash box because I was the most dispensable member of staff. And that time, okay, what's that got to do with the GDR? It's got a lot to do with that because I happened to meet some people in a youth organization, and they put me in contact with some people in East Berlin, and particularly in Köpenick. And I used to go there quite regularly and visit this couple. And I got to know them. We became friends, and we went to concerts in the Palast der Republik in East Berlin. And I had very, very interesting conversations. They were academics. They were interested in the exchange with me. And that was a very formative experience. Later on, I had another reawakening of this link with East Germany, with the GDR, when in 1990, the time of the Wende, at the time I was involved with teacher training and language training. And I was asked by the British Council and by various companies to do training in this very interesting time, in this transition period in 1990 to 1992. So we did in-service teacher training courses, and we also, I did some work with employees who'd worked for the East German computer company Robotron, and they were being sort of retrained to do other things. So that was a very formative experience too. So that's my basis of that, and I'm pleased to talk about it. I think my background is a historian, so I actually think it's very important that we understand history in order to understand the present and plan the future.
Yeah.
And I think both of us have an unusual perspective. We both, I'm originally British, you're from the US, so we have a sort of outsider perspective.
No, I think that's what it connects us as well, is that we both really believe how important history is. The Santana quote that those who do not trust history are destined to repeat it. And I think I have to admit, I kind of live that every day. I am, because of this time, I mean, that's why I'm in Germany today. This is 30 years later, is because of that formative experience I had in the East, which, at the time it was happening so fast, I couldn't even put it together. I couldn't analyze it for you, not for $100 million, what was going on with me. But that year afterward, where I really tried to put it together and I wrote down my experiences for my bachelor thesis, that's what brought me back. And also the fact that I wasn't in the East when the wall came down. I had left, I was gone. I was already back in the US writing my thesis when the wall came down, and I had to integrate that into my thesis. And as I was, going through this myself, I was thinking of all those people in the East who were also having to process and think about what their future is going to be like. At the same time that I was just, I had the easy job of just rewriting my thesis. These people were going to have to rewrite their lives.